Okay, this will be the last video of this series, and I wanted to bring on someone who I knew was an expert, unfortunately. This is my good friend Caitlin, who I've known since college, and we've had the unique opportunity or misfortune of seeing each other at our worst. We both have had losses and been pregnant at the same time. So we have a very unique perspective of how friendship really changes and how it was really tested and how you can come out the other end. I feel like we are
we're
closer now than we ever
100%.
wished we could be, though. It's one of those moments. So I got pregnant with Leo. Caitlin got pregnant with her first child.
Yeah.
And you had a miscarriage at how far along, or what kind of miscarriage was it?
So it was, I guess technically it would be a miscarriage at 5 weeks. So I went in for my first ultrasound because I was having bleeding, which I thought was, kind of weird. It didn't feel like, I don't know, the pregnancy itself kind of, I don't know how to explain it, but it just didn't seem like a normal experience of a pregnancy in the beginning. I felt like something was off, I guess, is the best way to explain it. So I went in at 5 weeks and I got an ultrasound, and it was really awkward because they had said there's just no baby. So that was...
It had something to do with your blood types too,
So I'm actually Rh negative. My blood type is A negative. So if my blood type comes in contact with a positive blood type, then it can create antibodies, which is actually very dangerous for mom and baby. So that was something I found out through that also, which was pretty important, through my other pregnancies, Ava and Olivia. So that was, I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but that was something I learned because I'd never actually known about that at all.
So I continued my pregnancy with Leo, and while you were grieving with your miscarriage, and then somewhere towards the end you got pregnant with your second child, Ava. I don't know how long was I when you were pregnant with?
You were...
I had Leo in January. Right. You had Ava in
July.
Yeah. So they would have been...
They were pretty...
close in age.
Right. I think I was... Let me see. I was not quite 13 weeks yet. So I was pretty early in my pregnancy with Ava.
So you had to deal with the fact that you came to my son's funeral pregnant, which is hard for anybody. That decision's hard because it's... You support your friend, but you know that you're pregnant, and it's just so fresh. I know we told you we would never tell anyone not to come to our son's funeral because it wasn't about our feelings. Right. It was whoever loves our son can come and say their goodbyes. It's how we felt about it. I didn't know how you felt about coming.
It was definitely something that Nick and I had talked about. It was a really big conversation because we had talked to you guys about it a little bit. Just
sort of more Dylan than me.
Right. Yeah, we definitely talked to Dylan, kind of feeling it out, just because I felt guilty, to be honest. I felt it's not fair to come to a funeral for, my best friend who just lost her son and be pregnant with,
It's not like you can hide your bump.
Right.
Or if the child was alive, you can not to bring kids.
I didn't want to I felt like I was flaunting it, which was a horrible feeling. I'm so glad I went. I mean, I know I was really nervous, but I wanted to be there for you guys.
Because it was more than
it was for
Leo. We had to put aside our...
We went through, your whole pregnancy with you. I painted your belly, and we, got holidays together and everything. We got together and experienced so many things through your pregnancy that there was no way. There was not a doubt in my mind that we would ever not be there for you guys.
So then beautiful little Ava was born in July, and I unfortunately missed so much of Ava's beginning, which still tears me up that I couldn't go to her baby shower.
Right.
I wasn't there when she was born. I think the first time I saw Ava was much, much, much later.
Yeah, it was whenever you told us
That I was pregnant.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I had that feeling of like, I can't go see her until I have good news. Like,
Yeah.
I can't see Ava or hold baby. I couldn't hold a baby for the whole first year after losing Leo. And I feel like I was robbed of a lot of relationships because even Ava still today doesn't know me super well. She warms up to me every time.
There,
Yeah.
She just does. But yeah.
So when I came to tell you I was pregnant with the twins,
I was pregnant too.
you were pregnant too, and we had a double announcement.
Yeah.
Then, so we were really close. I think, what was Olivia's due date?
Her due date was August 7th.
And the twins' due date was actually July. They were born in June, but their due date was July.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
pretty close again.
So it's really like scary to think about how neither one of us could be happy for each other at the same time. It was one of those, like, either you get to have your kid or you get to have your kid. It felt like the universe was against our friendship.
If one of us was experiencing a happy time, the other one was going through something.
Hell.
It was going through hell.
Pretty much. So
hell. Yeah.
I had to show up to Olivia's funeral with pregnant twins. So I remember wearing a black dress and like, Dylan, do I look pregnant? Please, I'm gonna suck in the whole time.
I did that. Yeah, I did. I remember doing that because I was like, because I was starting to show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that I remember being so conscious of like what I looked like.
And experiencing, we discussed going to your funeral because it was going to be a lot of like replay for us going through the funeral. Babies, you don't think you'd go to two babies' funerals in a 2-year time span. Like, no one.
That's too many.
Yeah, that's definitely.
You never want to go to. Yeah, right.
But it was reliving all those moments, but not sitting in the front row this time, like taking a back seat and watching the parents. It was a very outer body experience. I felt like I'm watching mom and dad cry and just be in the front. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, is this what it felt like for you guys to sit there and watch your best friend go through so much pain and heartache and just...
Yeah, it's literally, like an outer body experience. Like,
well, I'm sure when you were at Leo's, you didn't think that in a year time span that was going to be you.
You don't ever think, you don't ever think it's going to be something that you have to experience like yourself. I'm grateful that I've, I guess I kind of got a little bit of experience on the other side of it, so that going through it myself, I don't want to say like I knew, I don't know how to explain it, but I kind of...
You're never truly prepared, but you knew it existed.
Yeah. I was unfortunately there to, be on the outside of it.
It's one of those weird things. Right. Like, I'm not happy I had my experience.
I was just trying to say that. Like, I'm not happy, but yeah.
There's I had a friend, like, I feel like you helped me a lot with raising my twins because Ava is older and she's starting to ask questions about Olivia. And that's going to start happening to me. So you have really can guide me through that while I feel like I can help you through navigating all the other things.
Every hard moment I've had, I've texted you and been like, hey, this is what I'm feeling. And you're like, feel it because it's tough. It's hard and you're going to hate it. And you're allowed to have a breakdown. And hearing that I'm allowed to have a breakdown and that I'm not crazy thinking that this is like the end of the world for me, like somebody saying like I allow you to just cry and be upset is like okay, this is okay. I'm allowed to give myself this. My
main rule when talking to you is I never ever want to lie to you, so I never want to give you a false hope.
That's another thing, you don't sugarcoat it. I needed that because everybody kept saying like it'll be okay and
it's gonna get better.
Get through this, and this happened for a reason, and that I need somebody to say like, no, it's gonna suck.
Yeah,
it's gonna suck, and you're gonna hate it, and it's gonna be awful. but I'm here. So that's a huge help for me. Like that's been something that has been, I don't want, like, it's a positive in all of this, I guess, is somebody that I can go to.
Yeah.
To say like, hey, I'm having a hard day. And you're like, I've had that hard day. Here's help, basically. Here's a friend.
It's a club that nobody wants to be in, but you're sure happy that you're in a club, knowing that you're not alone, and that like some other mom has had this emotion before, and it's really eye-opening. But losing Leah was different than Olivia. So Leah was stillbirth, like he died in the womb and wasn't alive when I gave birth to him. Where Olivia, on the other hand, it's a different story.
Yeah, so I had her, I went into premature labor. I had her at 20 weeks, 5 days. I woke up one night and was just in labor. So I went, to the hospital and was dilated enough that they said, you're going to have a baby today. And, I had her naturally. I didn't have any, no medication, nothing. I had her and she lived for 2 hours and 37 minutes, and we got to hold her and just be with her for, those hours that we got. And yeah, there's no, they can't really explain what happened or why she was born early. There's a lot of talk with my doctors on, different causes like an incompetent cervix, which is something that I had never heard about until all of this, the aftermath of all of this. But they also said something about a placental abruption, which actually is what happened to Chrissy Teigen.
Mm-hmm.
She had a placental abruption and she just lost her son at 20 weeks. So
almost exactly, you guys are very
literally, it's like
because you were heavily bleeding too prior.
Yeah, so I was having major contractions, like I was active labor, and then that's really what the bleeding and the actual labor of it all. So that's what they're saying could be a cause. That's what's actually on her death certificate. We had a funeral for her. We buried her. She's buried at a cemetery very close to here. And we visit her every day. Not every day, but almost every day. As much as we can get there without living there at the cemetery with her. And staying there and being as close as we can. But, yeah.
And we wanted to dive in a little bit more into the medical side of things, really praising some nurses and also giving a little bit of criticism to some of our hospital experiences, and the documentation's a little bit fuzzy for a lot of babies who are born still or who do not make it. So, but first, I guess let's start with a positive talk about
nurses.
Our nurses.
Yeah.
Like, if you are a nurse, and especially a labor delivery nurse, know that you are appreciated.
And there's experiences that you've touched us, with all of the trauma that we've been through. There are, nurses that have stuck out for us, and the really awesome things that you guys have done for our babies.
It's not the doctors.
Right.
Like, they might catch the child, but it's the nurses that are with you, and they do the gathering of the boxes, and they're the ones that make or break that experience. They just they're the ones who think, all right, she's not going to know this, but she's really going to want these footprints, or she's really going to want this hat saved. Oh, I should seal this hat in a plastic bag. Those are thoughts that the parents,
I would not think of that.
Don't think of at all.
During the time, because you're going through so much
and
at that moment.
A lot of those moments you wish you weren't there.
Right.
So you're not thinking, what am I going to want to take home with me?
Right.
You're thinking, I want my baby. I want my baby. I want my baby.
You have one thought on your mind. It's your child and nothing else.
Yeah.
So for them to, come through and just think of the little details, honestly, having my daughter's footprint on a ornament, or having actually like molds of my daughter, like a mold of my daughter's feet. That's like something I
It's
will
priceless.
never.
Like it's
It's
worth.
it's literally like I hold on to it for dear life because it's what we have. It's something I can keep with us and look back at. We were just looking at photos of my daughter that the nurses took, and you know, just there's just certain nurses that I'll never forget that they've just been a light through all of that. You just, it's a bright, like you were saying, there's bright lights of memories.
Yeah, when you think back on memories, there's certain like on like bright spots where you just, it's so vivid and just so magical. Like you were saying, Olivia was born and then the nurse came up to you and told her that like we sang to your baby, and like hearing those words, you have no idea how much that
like,
it's not even like healing, but it's something that I needed to hear, to hear you treat my baby like a baby. Like thank you for making this experience. Like it's the birth of my child. It's supposed to be the happiest experience ever. And it's not. It's the worst day. But by you saying that and treating him with the respect of any other child,
like
what more can a mom want? Like
that's for that nurse to so we weren't able to have our daughter baptized formally by a priest. One was just not available that night. So for the nurse to, you know, she knew that, and she knew that she was trying so hard to get in touch with a priest. And by the end of it all, she said, you know, I am allowed to baptize babies, and I prayed over your daughter, and I sang to her, and I comforted her. And that to me is just the nicest thing that anyone I don't even know could do for me. Like she didn't have to do any of that. That's not her. That's not her job description.
A lot of nurses aren't even trained on how to handle this type of situation. I feel like I had student nurses. I traumatized those student nurses. But then you have other ones who are seasoned, who have seen this before, and they kind of like know what to do, which is more than what we've never experienced something like that. So we're looking for that guardian to help us.
They've been a light. And like, while there are some good nurses, like there's some pretty negative experiences throughout, you know, all of this, you know, at the hospital, just not good things that I went through, and I'm sure you went through too, which, I mean, I had a doctor tell me that I was going to regret if I made another choice for my daughter, like having her, in order, you know, if I didn't have her naturally, I was going to regret it. And for him to even tell that to me was something that, you know, even a nurse said to me, like, hey, well, that was not appropriate. That was pretty, you know, pretty out of line, basically.
Yeah.
Like, he shouldn't have, you know, put his emotions into it. And it's something that sticks with me also, and something I'll never forget. I'm so happy that I had my daughter and I got to hold her, but the events leading up to it were pretty not great.
Traumatizing.
Yeah, pretty traumatizing. Yeah. And, you know, there were some nurses that they just didn't want to, I think they were trying to not, I don't know how to explain it. They were coming in the room but trying to do what they had to do, and
like ones that don't look you in the eye, they like duck in, duck out, they take your vitals or whatever, and they know not to say like the casual small talk because they're trying not to irritate you, but they won't bring up what's happening.
And it goes back to their comfort level too. I mean, it's like if they've never been around it, and that's, you know,
you don't get into that job for those moments,
for those the negatives of it all. And I'll never forget, we were there, and it was after they had, you know, after she passed away and after they had taken her, and a nurse just came in and started cleaning up, and I was just, it's something about it just it made me so angry because it was like a finality of it all.
Yeah.
It was like everything was done and she was cleaning up, and I'm sure that was something she had to do.
Yeah, it
like
was her
somebody
job.
told
Yeah.
somebody told her, hey, this needs done. And she didn't realize, that I'm sure she never intended for it to be so significant for me, but that moment there was just kind of like knowing little things like that, I think would be super helpful for nurses, just to kind of, obviously there are some great nurses,
but there's also really, really bad
there
nurses.
are. I'm trying to be nice.
And
I'm trying to be,
especially with it was for me, it wasn't the labor and delivery nurses did really well. It was the post nurses. They thought it was over just because I left that room and the trauma was done with. Because those nurses, I felt like, really tried to get in and get out. They got my order, they brought it back, it was wrong, but I wasn't gonna fix it. Or just if we needed pillows, they said, okay, give it to us. They were just doing their job.
Yeah.
I wasn't anything special to them, nor I guess I wasn't. You just wish for the nurses who do more than just be a nurse.
Right. Yeah. Because those are hard. Yeah. Those are the best. Those moments where they look at you like a grieving mom and somebody who just lost their baby, other than just a patient, I guess. But I don't know how to really
Well, you were thrown through the ringer with yours. If you backpedal, you started out at one hospital with complaining of, were you just bleeding or pain?
So how it started was that I called and I said, I think I'm having contractions, and they said, just drink some water, it'll be fine, go back to bed.
Drink some orange juice.
No big deal. Yeah, they were just like, oh, this is fine. No biggie. And then I noticed something was really wrong. I was like, I'm in labor. We gotta go to the hospital. And I started out at one hospital, and they gave me 3 options. One to help me naturally, to induce, and one to not do anything and just let my body do its thing, Whenever I had her. And then the third option was surgery, which was to end the pregnancy surgically, which at 20 weeks is a big deal. So and they didn't explain the surgery to me, which was another thing. So in my mind, I wanted to protect myself mentally as much as I possibly could. So I said surgery. It
feels like the easiest option.
Right. It was something that, it was easy. It was easy. I didn't have to.
Less attached. No.
Right. I wanted to take the emotion out of it, and I knew the outcome. So I wanted to protect us. I didn't want it to hurt. So I picked surgery, and they said, you can't do it here. We are not capable of doing it here. So they had to transfer me to another hospital. But they said that by the time the ambulance got there, it would be pointless to, you wouldn't be going anywhere, basically. At the time it would take for an ambulance to get there would be too long. So my dad drove me, and that was the longest drive of my entire life.
So instead of having an ambulance take you, you had to have your dad take you to a whole new hospital.
In active labor, driving through, the city, and it was such a bad experience. I feel so bad for everybody, my parents.
Not the worst part though, you feel bad for other people.
Yeah. I was gonna say, just hearing myself say it out loud, I feel bad for everybody else because I know it was scary.
Yeah, and you feel like you're the epicenter. This is all your fault. This is everyone's doing this for me, and I'm the problem. And
this is all. I'm the star of the show.
Yeah,
not to.
Everyone's doing this for me. It's your dad's driving you, and you're like, oh, sorry you have to do this, or my mom had to make all these phone calls. I'm like, I'm sorry you had to make those phone calls. It's
but on another note, thank God for my parents. Thank God for his parents, because you know, you're in such a panic that they were thinking for me.
Yeah.
So it was like
You become paralyzed. Like
right. you're
no good at all. No
Yeah.
decision making is gonna come out of your mouth.
yeah, I
No.
was just going through it.
Yeah, you're just like
I was just there. And yeah, like they gave me pain medicine and it didn't even help at all. And I got to that hospital and I kept telling them that I was having such bad contractions and nobody would listen to me and nobody would understand like how quickly things were going. Like they were like, can you change into this? Can you give me?
And you're like, I'm delivering. Like this baby's coming out.
I was like, I'm in labor. Like give me something to help me, because I knew the outcome by the time by the second hospital. So I was I if I have to go through this, I don't want it to hurt.
Did you have hope at all? Because you knew Olivia was still alive right now. Like
yeah.
You knew she was going to be born and you knew it was going to be tough, but did you ever think, like, they can do something, just get her out so you can do something?
Right. So the only thing they gave me was morphine to basically numb the pain.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get any epidural. I didn't get any induction medicine. Nothing. I just got, like, hey, but they were, at the hospital, it was basically, like, in their, in the plan, it was, you're going to get surgery.
Mm-hmm.
So, I kept having people come in and talk to me and just felt like everybody kept talking to me and nothing was happening. And I even said to them at one point, like, everybody's just talking to me. I just want this to,
Yeah.
I don't want to say it, but I just want this to be done. Like, I just want the experience to be over. And, like, in my brain, I wanted to get on the other side of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because in my mind, they already told me that, there was nothing they could do, basically. The end result was, I'm not leaving the hospital with a child.
So they did prep, because with Leo, they prepped me for what I was going to see. They were like, all right, so this is what's going to happen. This is what he might look like.
Right.
No?
Nothing. I got a few conversations of what they could do, of the doctor coming in and basically saying, like, are you sure you want to do this?
Mm-hmm. Nothing about, like, this is how we're going to comfort Olivia during this time, or, like, what she's going to be.
He said, he just kept asking me, like, I'll give you time to think about it, and I'll give you time to talk about it with your family. And we did. We talked about it a good bit. Like, I weighed my options, and, I really, like, said to my parents, like, what do you think? And I kind of tried to bounce it off of everybody else, like, is this the right thing to do? And not knowing what it all entailed. Like, I knew I was going to go into surgery, I knew I was going to have surgery, and then I knew I was going to come out and it was going to be done. Not knowing anything. So by the time it was actually time to do the surgery, and then the surgical, like, the surgeon came in to talk to me, I was pushing, like, so they rushed me down the hallway and they were yelling at me, don't push, and I got into the room and they actually made me change beds as I was having her, and it was I don't think there was a doctor in the room when I had her, so all of the nurses were, like, panicking, trying to figure out, holy moly, like, what do we do? Like, we have to, hurry up and, act. So
you're like, can someone just take the lead?
I'm like, can somebody just, like,
yeah, I felt like it was just, like, a three-ring
hey.
circus, but there was no one really.
There was no one leading there was nobody. I felt like I was talking to people and they just weren't
They weren't even listening to what you wanted. They were telling you all this stuff, giving you all these options, and letting you sit there and wait, and then not even listening.
Yeah, by the time I was done waiting, I had her.
It was too late. Like,
yeah, so it was. I felt like my option was taken away from me, and it was a lot. Like, it almost felt like a bit of a loss of control through all of it too. But yeah, I'm thankful though in the end that I got to see her and spend time with her and hold her.
It was I never have asked you this before. So you didn't know Olivia was a girl.
Yeah.
And I would assume for people who like wait to find out the gender, when you're delivering a baby, your number one thought is like, what's it gonna be? What's it gonna
Yeah.
Did you have those thoughts delivering her, or was it just like,
Yeah.
just like get the baby out, let's just get this over with? Or did you think, I want to know what, did you ask, or did they just tell you?
So that was our first question. Like after she was born, we were like, is it a boy or a girl? And they were like, she's a girl. Do you want to, like, no, then it was, do you want to see her and everything?
Did that make it more real? Like, it's not just your baby,
yeah,
it's your baby girl.
It was a person. Like, she was a person to me. She was our daughter, and that, it made her more real for us. And obviously
Finding out
seeing her,
it was a girl, what was the emotion like?
I was like, oh, another girl. We have, Ava already. I was like, I was convinced she was a boy. I was like, there's no way that the second baby's gonna be a girl. There's no way, we'll be, because the pregnancy was so different. I had morning sickness, and it was just a whole other pregnancy.
Everyone's convinced it was a boy.
Yeah, I was fully like,
Surprised.
I was like, oh, it's a boy. I'm gonna think of boy names, and then I was like a girl, and I was like,
so you didn't have a name picked out.
yeah, no. We were actually supposed to go to our gender ultrasound that morning. So that was another thing. It was like just off by like.
How was picking her name?
I remember I remember holding her, and everybody was talking about it. We were throwing around ideas like.
Did you have to
What
pick a
should
name
we-
for Olivia? Like,
I-
because she was born,
she-
like she
yeah,
she should have a birth certificate. Like,
Yeah, which
she lived. She
which is
took breath.
Yeah. So, we wanted to name her because I remember filling out her birth certificate and everything. And we wanted to give her a name. And, Nick told me, you can pick her name. He said, if it's a girl, it was before we even knew. He was like, if it's a girl, you pick it. If it's a boy, I'll pick it. So I was like, oh, I get to pick this one. So I tossed around ideas. Olivia was on our list, but it was never like I know this is gonna be my daughter, my next daughter's name. It was just it just kind of fell into place, I guess. And then we threw around ideas of middle names, and I don't know, Olivia Rose just sounded
Pretty.
right. Yeah, it just sounded pretty. So that's what she is, Olivia Rose. There's a rose for my girl. So. Yeah, it just sounded right. Like she's Olivia. She's Ava. We have Ava and Olivia.
Well, since it is a girl, thinking about how close, I think that's what makes it, from the outside looking at that's so hard. Like two little girls so close in age. Like Olivia and Ava would have been.
They would have been so
thick as thieves. They're only like a couple, less than a year apart.
Yeah, they would have been like 13 months apart. Maybe not even. They would have been almost like. Right
so close, and to think like two little girls like playing dress up, like that's really like.
That's what hurts my heart a little bit, is because I always wanted a sister. I always wanted somebody that I could be close to. I mean, sorry Dan, my brother, but I always wanted like a sister to be close with and everything. And the thought of having a sibling that close to her in age, I was like, they're gonna be so close. And everybody was saying like, have kids close together because they're gonna be best friends. And thinking about it now, I'm like, I really wish they would have gotten to physically grow up together and to be with each other, because I know they would be best friends. Like, I don't know, but it is, it's kind of tough.
I feel like Olivia or Ava is such a spitfire. Like I think like
Yeah.
Olivia would have been more laid back.
I think Olivia would have been more like me, and I think Ava's definitely like Nick. she's she has no fear, which I love.
Then terrified of at the same
I'm terrified.
time.
Yeah, that's a fact. Yeah.
So since Olivia lived for 2 hours and 37 minutes.
Yeah.
She got to have a birth certificate. Leo is not considered to be a person in the eyes of the state. All he got was a death certificate and an unknown cause of death. They filled out his cause of death before the autopsy happened, which was kind of weird. And then Olivia also got a death certificate. Although you have the death certificate and you don't have
I don't have a birth
her
certificate.
birth certificate. Like,
Yeah. I don't know why we don't have her birth certificate. It bothers me, and it's
like
something I
it's something
need
that
to,
comes in the mail. Like,
Right.
why this shouldn't have to be
Yeah.
on you to do
Right.
these fact checking things.
Yeah.
Which is what happens a lot. Like, I feel like our kids get pushed
Push,
because
yeah.
they're dead. That means they don't count anymore. They don't
Right.
matter. We focus more on the living
Yeah.
kids who, you know.
And like, as if this experience wasn't bad enough.
Mhm.
Like, that's something that, you know, just adds to it. Because I don't want to have to call a hospital or call, you know, anywhere and ask for my daughter's birth certificate.
You shouldn't have to. Like, you don't have to do that for really any other kid.
Right. I got, you know, Ava's birth certificate in the mail. And, yeah, not even having a birth certificate. That's, I don't know. It just, yeah, they lived. They were your child. They were born.
Mhm.
They existed.
Some-
They exist.
Some states do it, and I do have the option in Pennsylvania to request one, but I don't think
You
it
should
should
have
have
to.
to be.
Yeah.
That's more work on my part, and I've already gone through all the funeral work, all this other work that I had to get done. I didn't do it. My family did it, thank God. But
Yeah.
so there's a lot of issues there.
Yeah. But, I mean, things like that, having things like that, like the little details, like people don't realize that matter to grieving parents, like how we go back to, you know, talking about keeping things, like keepsakes, like a birth certificate and a death certificate and your footprints of your child and just little stuff like blankets and stuff. Like, there's organizations that are amazing that take the time to think of those things, and it's just little stuff that you keep. Like, we were just looking through them with, you know,
And it brings it
Olivia's.
all back. And
Yeah.
not always in this devastating way. It brings
Right.
it back. It brings the love back.
Yeah.
Like that
100%.
wash of just,
Right.
I'm super sad to be holding your blanket, but I'm super happy I have this
it.
blanket. Like,
Yeah.
it's such a complex emotion that no one
Yeah,
gets unless
really
you've
is.
gone through it yourself,
Yeah.
looking through stuff.
Definitely. Yeah, it's something you're happy to have it. You're happy to have a tangible thing.
It just feels like, okay, he was real. I still have
Right.
this. Like,
Yeah. You can keep it with, like, even though they're physically gone, you still have something physical to hold on to that reminds you of them and smells like them, and you can show to your other kids if you have, you know, like I can show Olivia's blanket to Ava.
I think that helps kids
Yeah,
too.
it does.
Like,
Definitely.
touching things, feeling things. Like, these
Yeah.
aren't just stories I'm making up. These are like,
Yeah.
this is your brother, or this is
Right.
your sister, this is someone who existed. And
Yeah. Especially when they're so young, that when it happens, you know, Ava was 8 months old when Olivia passed away. So, and you know, the twins, they came after Leo.
Mhm.
So, just having something to show them, to explain it, because explaining, like you said in one of your videos, explaining death to your child shouldn't have to be their sibling.
Yeah, that makes it's a whole other
Yeah, it's just a whole other
stressor
thing.
as a
Right.
mom, especially.
Right. Yeah, it's hard. It's definitely something that you have to go through trial by error, and you know.
There's no really
Right. There's
manual.
No, right.
And every kid's different. Every kid's gonna handle it different. Every kid's gonna say different things, and
Yeah.
you're not gonna be prepared for certain questions, and they're gonna catch you off guard, like they do with other questions.
Yeah. It's gonna be, yeah, it's a rocky road.
Yeah.
I'm thankful that we have, in a sense, I'm thankful that we have a cemetery that we can go to and a place that we can go to, like a physical space that we can be at to talk about her and remember her and show Ava. But then also, like, I get to kind of leave, I don't know, I get to kind of place my grief there, and then I get to walk away from it, I guess.
That's
to
we're in
leave.
different experiences
Yeah.
there, which I find really, because I'm almost jealous that you have a resting place for, because Leo is cremated and he's in Dylan and I's bedroom, so
Right. Yeah, right.
like,
So he's
with us all the time,
Yeah.
but we never sit there and stare at it. Like if you go to a cemetery, you are carving out
Yeah.
time to sit there and do nothing else but grieve
But-
and have
yeah.
that time.
yeah.
Then you're right. When you leave, you feel
leave
like
it there, or yeah.
mm-hmm.
That's it's a whole opposites for us. Like, and part of me wishes that I had Olivia. Like, I want to be as close as possible to her. Like, the
Mhm.
cemetery is less than a mile away for us, so like having that as close to us, we could walk there if we wanted to, and we do, and it gives us I feel like I want to be there as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like having Leo with you 100% of the time, he's always there, and
Yeah.
he's
Well, we don't want him to be there.
Right.
We want him buried. It feels so weird that we have to think of these things. We want our son to be buried with us because, I don't expect Ben and Grace to take Leo's ashes with them forever. And like, what's he going to do? Trickle down the line in this urn? This is my great, great, great uncle.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't even have kids to
Yeah.
hold on to that. So it's like, he'll get lost if we don't give him a resting place. So right now I feel uneasy that he doesn't have a resting place because
Right.
Dylan and I are 28 years old. We don't know
Yeah.
where we're gonna
right.
be buried, where we're gonna live, that
Yeah.
we want to be close. I don't want to bury Leo in Johnstown and end up we move to California. Like
We've talked about that. Yeah.
do you feel like you're stuck
So-
here?
We've actually talked about where we would be buried and if we would be buried there, because she's with my grandmother, and that kind of comforts me in that sense. But I wouldn't want to be buried anywhere else than where she is. Like, I want her to be with me when we go, and we've actually talked about like relocating her grave, but that would be a whole other emotional process.
Oh yeah, like that's just like, how do you even
Thinking of
think of
that,
those things
yeah.
without having a breakdown?
Thinking of that, like we've like if we move, we've said we're not gonna move unless she's
Because you want to be able to
unless she's
visit
with us.
her.
Right,
Like,
right. If we're outside of a certain amount of time away from her, then she needs to be with us.
Mhm.
Like, as awful as it would be to have to like move her grave,
mhm.
it would be something that we've really talked about doing if that came up.
Because again, we're so young.
Right, you're
Like
20,
it's not how
you're
can
in your
you
late 20s. Like, what do you
be tethered to like a location like that when you
Yeah.
don't know what life is gonna take you, or
hmm I've thought about buying a plot already. Like,
it makes you think of your death so much
Right.
more. And Dylan and I talk about. I asked him the other day. I'm like, are you more afraid or less afraid of death now since Leo's happened? And because I say I'm excited in a way for. I know when I die, I'm gonna be,
Right.
I'm hoping that I get to be reunited with my kid. But then Dylan's like, I don't want to be left alone with the twins. Like, I can't raise them like you do. And then I think, if you die, I'm really gonna be up shit's creek because
Nick and I say that all the time. Like, don't you like?
it makes death more of a conversation.
Yeah, death. 100%. We've talked about death and dying so much more now than we ever have in our lives, just because it's been so like such a focus for us now. Like, you plan your child's funeral.
Yeah, who does that?
Who does that? Yeah, who does that? That shouldn't be a thing. It should not happen. You should not live your kids.
No, they should be burying
Yeah.
you. Like,
Right,
like,
right. So that's a whole other, world. It's a whole other experience that no one should have to do at 27, 28 years old. Like, yeah.
and for the time, actually, I was 25 when he passed away. So like, it's
Right.
it's hard.
Yeah.
And it doesn't just end at the hospital. Like, people don't realize the reminder that happens. We wanted to talk about postpartum after loss. Like,
Yeah.
you still go through all the things you do with a normal baby, but just
Yes.
like in the paperwork I got home, it was warning me about the baby blues. And I'm like, I don't fucking have the baby blues. I
Right.
have a depression that is
Yeah.
like not the baby blues. Thank
Yeah.
you. So
Yeah.
the doctors sent me home with these folders of like
I have
care
folders too, yeah.
of how to care for
Yeah.
yourself after baby, but they weren't how to care for yourself after the loss of a baby. It was just the normal generic
Right.
paperwork
Right.
of
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, of what to experience after, you know, what you're going to go through after.
yeah. So like I literally wore a diaper to my son's funeral because I was bleeding and
Yeah.
like dealing with, I had to sit on a donut
Right.
leaving the hospital. Or like the worst one is your milk is supposed to
Yeah.
come in. Your milk came in
It
with
did, yeah.
Olivia and just
Yeah.
like
I was taking care of my 8-month-old and my milk was coming in.
and all of a sudden it's
And-
this reminder of
Right, and I was crying. I remember, but I was putting her in her crib and I leaned over and I realized, you know, my milk was coming in. And I hurried up and Googled how to stop it and what to do. And I bought cabbage leaves because I read that was a thing. And I just wanted it to, like...
So you didn't feel prepared for that to
No.
happen. No.
I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
It's not something I, you know...
Your body doesn't
Yeah.
know. Your body knows that you had a baby.
Right.
Your body doesn't know
Your body's
that.
preparing to take care of another person. And, yeah, you're not at that point. Like,
Yeah, they told me that my milk was going to come in. So, because Leah was full term, but Leah was also my first baby. So I didn't know what it was going to be like. I've never experienced something like that. And I know I had milk, but it never came out. And they told me like when you get in the shower, it's most likely
Right.
going to happen because it's warm. And like, I kept waiting for it. I'm like, I just want it to just happen already so it can
Yeah,
be
get it
over.
done.
Like,
Yep.
let me dry these up. And it never happened.
yeah.
And I look back and I think, well, I wasn't meant to be a mom. Like, not even my boobs knew I'm not supposed to be a mom. Like, it's just a traumatic experience that no one realizes. It keeps happening
Right.
over and over again. It's not just one day
Right.
is the worst day.
It's so
It's,
long.
I say the first year. I always say the first year.
Yeah.
It's literally
It's so hard.
the hardest
Yeah.
because you have to hit every holiday.
Yeah.
Without
every
them.
milestone. You
That
hit.
first year, all their firsts, you're
Every
like, all
one of
right.
them. Yeah.
This is their first Christmas. This would have been even their first Halloween and like their cute
Right.
outfits that you miss out on.
Right.
And
Yeah. Like I think of right now Halloween's tomorrow and I think of all of the cute little costumes that her and Yeah,
so
the two,
Ava's
like,
gonna
the-
be Elsa and it's just
Yeah.
like,
yeah, that's the things.
yeah.
That's the things you think about.
It doesn't end.
It
Like
doesn't
it
end.
never
It's
ever
forever.
ends. Like,
It's forever. It's
and it's all private. Like
right.
no one talks about these things.
Yeah.
And we've discussed whether or not we would want, if we were pregnant, do you want to hear the words that stillbirth or loss could occur?
Right.
Because it's hard. It's not like, you want to go into writing your delivery plan. This is the funeral I want
Right.
to use if something bad happens. Like, we
Yeah.
get that. No mom should have to pick those things out if they don't want to. But I do think you should be
I mean,
aware.
Yeah. At
You
least
should be aware that this just
Yeah.
like miscarriages. A lot of
Right.
people don't announce
Yeah.
until 13 weeks because they know.
I didn't talk about my miscarriage until I was pregnant with Ava. Like no one knew.
But is that really better? I mean, then you
Right.
suffer in silence. Like,
yeah,
not
you either and I didn't know that miscarriages were so common.
1 in 4.
1 in 4. I had no clue. I really didn't. And then I had one, and I was like, wow. And like, I talked to so many people, and they were like, yeah, I've had one too, and I can understand what you're going through. Like, I didn't know that so many people in my life.
Women just keep things bottled
Yeah.
up, secret, private. We're not supposed to share.
Yeah.
That's what my pregnancy with the twins. I didn't share my pregnancy with the twins on social media until the very end. And the only reason I did it was because I thought, you know what? If something did happen and no one knew about it, it's like they never existed. It's like I just swept these kids under the rug and like I didn't want anyone else to share.
Yeah.
I didn't want to share them because I was protecting myself. And
Right.
I thought, like, that's selfish. I should.
Yeah.
That's what pushed me.
Right.
I'm like, you know what? I want people to know that Ben and Grace,
Yeah, they're
they're
people.
here.
They're
They're
here.
like,
Yeah,
they're in my
your
belly.
children.
Like, they're still here.
Right.
So that's
Yeah.
why I decided to announce it. And
Yeah.
but then I remember looking back, I saw before I had my loss, a woman announced that she was pregnant on Facebook and she ended up having a miscarriage, and then she had to do the Facebook post
Right. You have to
saying,
say, yeah.
and I thought she should have waited. And I'm like, how dare I think that
Yeah,
now
like-
looking back, how awful am I that, she was excited about her baby. She has every
Right.
right to announce it.
Yeah,
And I should share in that joy, and I should also share in her loss. And I'm happy that, although it was probably really hard to make that
Yeah.
announcement, I hope that she was greeted with support that a lot of miscarried moms don't feel.
get. Yeah, because I had people even doubt the pregnancy at all with the miscarriage. They were like, well, are you sure you were even pregnant?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, like that's such a, I don't know, it's such a damaging thing to say to a woman. Like, you know you were pregnant, you know that baby existed, and just supporting a woman through that, because it, miscarriages are so different than, holding a baby in your arms, and it's
I feel like degrees is the wrong word. Like, anyone who's lost a child, regardless of how long it is, you lost a child. And it took me a long time to feel like I shouldn't compare myself to people.
Right.
Because I have a lot of women who come up to me and say, like, I have a miscarriage and I can't imagine. And no, we do have separate griefs. Those are very separate things. But you know what?
Yeah.
You are a mom. And, like, I see you, and your pain is real. And just because you think that my pain's harder doesn't mean that your pain isn't hard.
Right.
Like,
yeah, 100%.
I feel like a lot of people are scared to tell me that they've suffered a loss because they think my loss is so great. Well, I've known women who lost their baby on Christmas, like
Yeah.
full term, delivered on Christmas, and you can't live your life comparing yourself, comparing whose grief is harder. All you can do is get away from that and support each other, and
that's all. Yeah, that's all you can do. It's just be there.
And I've learned that the hard way, because I really didn't think miscarriages were that. I knew they were hard, but I didn't think like those women need more than like a week's of support. Like after a week they'll be over it. They'll be done crying. And
I went to a baby shower while I was miscarrying. That was hard.
And no one knew.
No one knew.
It's such a lonely life
No one had any idea. I went to a baby shower not long, I went to baby showers since Olivia, and I've had family come up to me and say, like, look, I know this is hard for you, and I appreciate you even being here.
Mm-hmm.
That's nice to hear.
Mm-hmm.
It's just recognizing. But like other moms, like, I appreciate any mom that reaches out to me, or that like us having each other to fall back on, and like knowing each other just to be there, I guess. Just somebody to kind
of. I've never suffered a miscarriage, so I really feel like I have no room to talk too much, because like when I say I have 3 kids, I say I have 3 kids. Like I've had 3, and for the most part, I hear you say you have 2, even though like that's what's hard though about, because you don't give birth. I think that's the difference. But
so it's hard for me saying that I have 3 kids, just because people kind of scratch their head and go, oh, your other kids, and I feel like explaining Olivia is easier than explaining a miscarriage. But when I go to the doctor, saying that I've had 3 pregnancies, that's, and then I have to explain it all to them, and, they go, oh, like they get it. I get their reaction kind of makes me weird. I don't know. I guess seeing how people react when I tell them that kind of makes me keep the miscarriage, I guess, to myself, just because it wasn't a planned pregnancy. It was a surprise all around. So the surprise initially there anyway, and then the surprise again was just something I kept so private for so long, and then finally I let it, opened up, I think last year actually, or the year before, when I realized October was, infant loss, pregnancy loss awareness month. I opened up about it.
I'm going to ask really in-depth questions so you can tell me to shut up when you want to, because again, so is the love, the miscarriages are hard to understand because like you don't know what it was, you never held it, like the baby. Since the miscarriage was your first pregnancy, did you feel like a mom afterwards, or was it just something that like it was a personal body experience that was traumatic?
It was.
How is it different than Olivia? Because I feel like the love you have for Olivia is.
Yeah, it's different. Yeah, both losses are so different. The first loss was, the miscarriage was such a physical experience for me, because it didn't just happen in one day. I mean, obviously, losing your child and
you had that excitement,
labor,
and you pictured your baby.
It was my first pregnancy, and I was super excited and scared, to be honest. And I guess I planned for it in my head and everything, and then to find out, it was soon after too, finding out that I'm pregnant and then finding out that I'm not pregnant anymore it was just a lot. But I don't know if I felt like a mom as much.
So is this right in saying, okay, so when a miscarriage happens, it's more like a dream dies, but when a loss happens, it's more like a nightmare is beginning? Or is that just you know what I mean? Like when you see the pregnancy stick, when it comes back positive, you can't help but think, it's a baby. There's a baby in me. And then you think about, I wonder if it's a boy or a girl. Like, nothing's planned. It's all thoughts. And when the miscarriage happens, all those thoughts kind of die.
Yeah.
But when you're at the point where you're finding out a gender and you're gonna give birth, it's like a nightmare of an experience.
Yeah, because you're far enough into it where you go, okay, my body is really, there's a human being there.
10 fingers, 10 toes, nose.
You physically see a baby, and
to hold a baby.
Yeah, and then a miscarriage.
It is different.
It's definitely different.
But both need support.
Right. That's what we're
both need love.
No matter what loss it is, just, being supportive 100%. I wish I had more support during my miscarriage, but to know that I have support through Olivia was, I think, having my friends through it and having, my family through it, more people knew and more people met Olivia, and
making it public's hard because you're forced. Like, people knew you were pregnant, and you have to have. Did you have conversations where someone's like, "Where's the baby?" or how far afterwards? Or you think
I had somebody I didn't even know came up to me in Walmart and was like, "Oh, are you are you expecting?" And I was like, "No," and then I had to go through the whole thing again.
That's why social media is nice in a way.
Yeah.
It's
like I can tell them
that battle of like, I really don't want to make this post.
Right.
I know I need to make this post. It's unfair that you people deserve an answer.
Right.
But in the end, it does make it easier on you because you feel like you have less explaining to do over and over and over and over again. I don't know what the women did before.
Right. And
social media.
And that a couple of days prior, Nick's family, we met, we were in Michigan for a funeral. And
a lot of you saw that black dress.
Yeah, I did. And we were talking about, the gender reveal, and they were like, call us whenever you find out, and having to make the other phone call of, hey, we lost baby was, it's not some, it's not a phone call you want to make, but I'm just glad to have, going back to support. I'm just glad to have support through it. Because that's really what I think has kept me going.
It's living you always think, if that would have happened to me, I would die. Well, honestly, I wasn't given a
Yeah.
choice. Like I
kinda have to
thought
live
that
it.
like
Yeah.
I don't think there's a woman out there who's gone through pregnancy who it hasn't crossed your mind like once, like a fading quick thought, like
Yeah.
what happens if this baby dies? And I've
Yeah.
had that thought, and I thought I would just die. I would literally just fall into a ball. You wouldn't see me again, and
Yeah, I would just cease to exist.
no, like people don't
Yeah.
know or say I don't know how you do it. Well,
Right.
I don't know how I do it. It's just
Now I do it for my daughter.
yeah.
That's about it. She kept me going. I do it for my family, I do it for my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And you have been advocating for Leo so hard for like awareness, and that I think is the best gift to him ever. Like it makes me want to do the same. So I think just spreading awareness and just getting the story out there, because I've never told anybody really. People ask, and I've told a few people, but nobody really know.
Because you don't know how much people want to hear,
right?
And it's a lot to tell. It's, and it's like it's a lot to get into. I'm like, are you ready to sit down here? The whole conversation.
Like, how much time do you have?
Yeah,
because it's a lot. I don't want to just tell you a little bit of the story because
she's worth telling the whole story.
Yeah,
she is. People should hear. When I tell Ben and Grace's birth story, it's like a quick. Yeah, I had those too.
Yeah,
but with our son and daughter, it's like.
Yeah.
I need to tell you the whole story.
You need to know them through this experience. Yeah.
And the important part of their lives is the hope is that it won't happen anymore. And the only way it's going to stop is if we start talking about what did happen.
And basically how to either prevent it or how to, I don't want to say deal with it, but how
education's key. You have to know it exists. If you don't know it's there, you can't stop it. So let's tell the world that there's a problem, and then hopefully something can get done. Because I'm not a doctor, but
but I sure would like to pass on firsthand experience and knowledge to anyone who will listen.
Yep. So hopefully anybody listened to this hour-long thing.
I was gonna say.
We'll see. All right.
Hopefully.
So, thank you for listening, and hopefully there'll be more to come later. But this concludes October.
I'm glad we got to talk and sit down, and I'm glad I could be the end episode of the month.
Now it's Thanksgiving.
Yay! Yay! Halloween tomorrow.
Yay!
Okay.